Shakur Stevenson really boring because after that fight, I seen hella people saying he's a boring fighter. Just because the man has 10 knockouts in his 21 fights doesn't make the fight boring. Because without logic, Floyd's boring. Actually, nah, never mind. Let me change that. Floyd is a very boring fighter, but with Shakur Stevenson, Shakur wants to be. How do I describe it? Shakur wants to win. He wants to have a winning edge. So just because he's not wanting to knock people out, it doesn't mean he's a boring fighter. He just wants to have the win. Okay? For example, if you're fighting someone like John Jones, would you go for a knockout against John Jones? No, you wouldn't. You want to win the fight, so you're not gonna go for the knockout. So with Shakur Stevenson, he plays it safe on the cards, wins by points, and he always dominates. For example, in his fight against Jeremy Nakathila, on the scorecards it was 120, 107, 120, 107, and 120, 107 on all judges' scorecards. In his fight versus Oscar Valdez, it was 117, 110, 118, 109, and 118, 109 from all the judges. That that shows that he isn't boring just because he doesn't have a knockout, but he's over skilled. He has enough skill to put pace on a fighter, to damage a fighter, but he keeps it playing it safe by not going for the knockout. For example, in his fight versus Robson and Concedo, again, the scorecards was 117, 109, 118, 108, 117, 109 on the ref scorecard. And in his fight versus Edwin de Los Santos, where Edwin did call Shakur Stevenson Shakira Twitterson, the scorecard was 116, 112, 115, 106, 113, and 116, 112. That fight was closer than the other fights, but Shakur did play it safe, keeping a winning edge over his opponents. So just because a fighter isn't getting the knockouts doesn't make the fight boring. Shakur always puts on a show, but he does it in a way where he will always keep a winning edge against his opponents. Like as you saw in his amateur bouts, for example, when he was in the Olympics, you saw him crying. He doesn't like to lose. So obviously Shakur Stevenson is going to play safe. And then after that, you need to realize when he does knock people out, they're good opponents. He knocked out Jamal Herring. Jamal Herring was the WB World Super Featherweight Champion for how long? He was the champion for a long time. Same thing with if was it well not Shakira Yoshino. He was very average, but he took Yoshino's taking someone's is good enough rather than knocking someone's out. When you put it into perspective, he's taken Oscar Valdez's he's taken Yoshino's he's added to Edwin dos Santos's one, he's taken Joey Gonzalez's how many fighters has he taken the O of? You don't need to realize that just because a fighter is not knocking people out doesn't make the fighter boring. What makes the fighter boring if he's constantly playing it safe, not bringing pace into the fight, not damaging his opponent. But with Shakur Stevenson, he's not knocking out his opponent, but he's putting the pace on. He's hurting his opponent. He's lapping his opponents. And you lot need to realize in his weight division, because he weighs less, for example, the likes of Canelo Alvarez or people like this, or was or Jamal Charlo, all of those, yes, they have knockouts, but they're bigger than Shakur Stevenson. You don't really know much knockout artists in the division unless they're fighting low opponents or unless they're called Javante Davis. Javante Davis is a freak of nature. So if you compare Shakur Stevenson to Javante Davis and say he's boring, I'd understand. But you lot are calling Shakur Stevenson flat out boring, which is simply not the case. Another thing is Ryan Garcia, yes, he has knockouts, but look at most of his opponents. Most of his opponents aren't as good as Ryan Garcia, but with Chris Stevenson, he's always improving his opponents as he fights along. For example, just in his sixth fight, he took someone's O. You don't need to realize that by TKO in the second round. So you lot are calling him boring, but Shakur Stevenson is putting on a show. He's getting that money in his bank account while proving he's one of the greatest in his division. Shakur Stevenson moved up a weight, so you should expect to see a bit more knockouts, but you shouldn't expect to see much knockouts because he's coming from the featherweight division and the super featherweight division. So obviously you're not gonna expect a knockout. The only people who have knockouts you can really name in that division is Javante Davis and Ryan Garcia. But with Ryan, he's fighting lesser opponents. Javante is just a freak of nature. Devin Haney isn't a knockout artist. Teofimo Lopez was too big for the division. He moved up. So you lot really need to realize of this. And another thing is, Shakur Stevenson is a great fighter. You can't just call the fighter boring because he's not knocking people out. Yes, I understand it's boxing, but he came here for knockouts. In his amateur career, he's had 61 wins, 6 losses with 2 KOs because he's in a lower weight class. For example, in Tyson Fury's amateur career, he had what, 14, 18 KOs? That's because he's bigger. You don't need to accept that. Size comes with knockout power, not knockout power. Actually, wait, let me change that. Knockout power comes with size, not size comes with knockout power. You lot need to realize that. Shakur Steven is obviously a smaller opponent when most people are fighting. What he weighs a little bit above featherweight, lightweight, and he's 5'8". He's smaller than most of these opponents. So you calling him boring doesn't really change something, anyways. So in this conclusion, Shakur Stevenson isn't that boring. But anyways, guys, this is the Fight Talk, and I am out.